$3 million. That is the amount that we're talking about today, guys. We've got Kenzie on the channel today.
Hey.
As you guys know, I'm Joel with Punisher's Paintball, and today we are talking about the announcement that came from Valken Paintball on Friday of last week regarding sponsorships for 2024. We've got some discussion for you.
I'm so free.
Alrighty, guys, so on Friday of last week, and actually yesterday as well, Valken announced a $3 million stimulus package to the tournament paintball scene. It was kind of a shock to a lot of people. Valken, behind the scenes, has been doing some things that obviously now is public, which is that they've brought their paint manufacturing from overseas to the United States. So they have
two different locations.
Yep, East Coast, West Coast. Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool that it's made in the U.S.
I love that it's made in the U.S.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was always our biggest problem in years past was like quality of paint, especially their low grade stuff, the fate and all that stuff.
Like rocks.
Marbles. So it's kind of interesting that Valken is trying to get back into the tournament scene. They've been out of the tournament scene for, we've had the business for 5 years.
At least.
Yeah, and this is like the first time that Valken's kind of getting back in. I think for a little bit they didn't they?
Yeah, I think Valken primarily has this huge grab on the scenario world. I mean, every time our sponsored scenario teams immediately go to graffiti.
Correct.
They want their Valken graffiti.
Yeah.
So they definitely have a name for themselves. They've branded themselves in that area.
Right.
For sure.
For sure. And I think people on the tournament scene don't realize how big Valken actually is when it comes to the scenario side, and Valken is probably next to GI is probably the second largest overall company when it comes to this stuff. So it's kind of interesting now that they're going full force into the tournament scene. Mm-hmm. So basically what happened was they announced $3 million prize package for those teams that decide to go with them shooting their paint at NXL events. Mm-hmm. Didn't give a lot of details on exactly what is all that about.
Except one major one.
Okay, go ahead.
No requirements.
No gear requirements. Yes, that is true.
Hugest thing of all of the release, I think.
That is true. That's a good point. I think that's obviously a very engaging part of this, and that makes it appealing to people is the fact that you shoot their paint, you get to use whatever loader, whatever gun, whatever everything. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And they the amounts are different on everything, but I emailed Valken, or actually called Valken on Friday to try and get some details for you guys. They told me to email them. They have not gotten back to me. This is Tuesday now, and I've emailed them twice with some questions about the requirements and all that stuff.
But we are getting paint that has shipped.
We are getting paint, so we're going to do a comparison video, so stay tuned for that. Again, GI 5-star, Infamous Voltanium, and then two different versions of Valken paint, the Pro as well as the America Ball. So all three manufacturers were kind enough to send us paint complimentary for us to do a follow-up video to kind of give you guys comparison on the quality, because that's been a huge discussion online. Is the Valken ball going to be good? Is the Valken ball going to be good? That's the biggest
question that there is, right?
Yeah, so we don't know what the actual requirements are. No. One thing that was interesting about the post was, and I'll put the post up here, I'll put the pro version of that, $150,000 for number 1 seed Dynasty. That's a huge amount of money. If you do that over the period of, I think Dynasty's got 10 guys rostered, that's $15,000 a year. That's a pretty good amount of money. But what I want to know the details, and I've talked to some people in the industry because I think this is a big deal. They all,
I don't know. I feel
think it's kind of baloney.
I don't know.
That aren't Valken guys. So
I think there are people who are going to probably decline that just based upon their loyalty is to their brand. I feel like there's a lot of offshoots from some of the other guys that maybe adding Valken might not be their thing right now. But I feel like they're going to watch other people benefit from this and then shoot themselves in the foot and be like, why didn't we try this?
It's it's possible for sure.
Is Valken going to offer them again next year? Or if you didn't accept, are you done?
Yeah, well,
do you not get offered again?
So going into the biggest discussion here is Do you feel that this is good for the sport, and why?
Oh, 100%. This is going to give an initiative for people who are like dabbling a little bit, maybe in the lower divisions, not really sure if they want to go up, outrank what they're doing in their local fields. And then now there's this huge incentive. Like, I can get paid, or I can make some monetized appeal now to go farther.
Yeah.
To, maybe I wasn't going to, stay in D3 forever. And now it's like, now I have an incentive to go up.
Right. Yeah.
There's a reason to do it now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a huge amount of money. I think this is obviously Valken trying to make a statement saying, hey, we're here, we're trying to do this thing, we're going full force into tournament ball, which is cool. The amounts are surprising. You brought up an interesting fact. Go ahead, say it.
I did. So, for being such a flagship part of the paintball community, the women's league, the WNXL, I felt like their prices were just a little bit low.
So top for the pro was $150,000.
Right.
Compensation package, and we don't know exactly what that is. How much of that is money? How much of that is gear? What's the contingencies? We don't know that. What was it for the top women's pro team?
I feel like it was 10-5. Can we check real fast?
Yeah, check.
I do know I was a little bit like, I didn't really like this. I know the top D3 divisional team was getting more than some of the WNXL teams, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, that's a good
Being
point.
a lady baller.
That's a good point, for sure.
So, Heroines got $10K.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that was their biggest value for the WNXL.
It's an interesting topic, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all the women that play in the WNXL are have something to say about that. So, yeah, that's an interesting fact, and it is kind of interesting how they split up all the different compensations. So, overall, I think it's really cool that they're trying to do this. I think that they're obviously trying to make a statement right now. I think paint is obviously core outdoor prides themselves on their paint when it comes to having virgin materials, good quality control, everything else like that. We used 5-star as a D3 team last year. We had a good experience at every tournament. Sometimes it's a little bit bouncier than other times, but I will say it's very consistent, always shoots straight, and it's very consistent. Like, I can always count on it being at least good. Sometimes it was exceptional. And then you have the introduction of Infamous getting into the scene, Travis with the Voltanium. That's obviously a move in the right direction, because then we've got another paint manufacturer, and now Valken's like, we're gonna go full bore, and Valken's the only one that's GI paint is made in North America. In Canada, this is the only one that's being made in the Valken paint is the only one being made in the U.S., which is kind of cool.
Right.
So
something else I feel like too, I know there was always talk about, Tom trying to get paintball into the Olympics, and we are like the only sport that has
Tom Cole, guy that runs the NXL,
has always kind of insinuated that's been a big goal of his, and we're the only sport that doesn't have people like Valken coming in and monetizing this kind of thing. I feel like it just steps up the paintball game at this point.
I agree. I mean, I think for me, looking at it from a business perspective, I think that's my biggest thing, is like it brings a certain level of legitimacy. If this pans out, I think my biggest hesitation right now is like, this has to work. Like, this can't be like
a one and done.
Well, it can't be like the Land Saints, right? Like the Land Saints, all this thing, it's big talk, everyone talks about it, right? Like the paintball industry is very good at that, where it's like they throw out an idea, they throw out a product, they do this and that.
Yeah.
And then like the promise doesn't stick, they don't hold to their word and everything else like that. I think that if this does stick, which I think that Valken obviously has thought about this long and hard, I don't know how they're going to be making money off this. That's my thing, is like, you throw $3 million back into the game, you obviously have to sell a lot.
And maybe there's
paint,
something else like that we don't even know.
Well, that's true. So I'm excited. We'll obviously have a follow-up to this. Stay tuned for our comparison video on this. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear what you're thinking on this. And, do you have anything else?
I just think the biggest thing for this is going to be the zero requirements. I still think that hasn't been talked enough. Like, you are not going to have to be committed to anything. Literally nothing except shooting their paint. I can wear my dye hat and my JT shirt and be just fine.
So Doug and I were just talking on September News. We were talking about the Halo 2 and all that stuff because you've got like AC Diesel and all these guys using old technology because the new technology isn't there and everything else like that. But like GI was like, no, we're going to make you use our product whether or not. And don't get me wrong, the Halo 2 is a great loader, but like from like a features standpoint, it's just not there with the other loaders. And you've got a really good point there, right? Like,
how many trade-ins do I get all the time? Oh, my team just went from Lux to Planet or Planet to this, and then now the entire team's trading in all 8 guns, right? You don't have to do that any longer. You can keep your gun that you love.
And I will say that's a big factor for teams that are serious, because I've run a team that's serious in the NXL, is that like we had a serious discussion at the beginning of the year because everyone needs a paint deal in order to be competitive. It's just part of the game. Like, when you shoot anywhere from 80 to 100 cases of paint, if you go deep into a tournament, that adds up. Each person, that obviously racks up the bill. So I think that like you're right. Like it is very important.
Huge.
It's huge. So with that said, real quick before we sign off, do you think that this is going to change the game or change it up? Like, is this going? Are they going to capture a large part of?
Well, how are you going to compete with this, right? So if the incentive here to draw in the Valken contract is I have no requirements, what kind of example is that setting for everybody else? Are they going to have to counteract that with, you don't have to have this specific thing anymore. You can do something. So like someone somewhere is going to have to counter their sponsorships.
Yeah, and that's a good point. If Valken holds true and delivers, then yes, you've got a very good point, because as they start to capture market share, then
what are they going to do? Someone's got to make it up somewhere, be more competitive.
Well, for sure, GI would obviously have to answer that, and then
HK,
Infamous, and HK, those guys. Infamous is kind of in a spot because they're not as big as the other three between HK and HK, GI, and Valken. So it puts kind of everybody in an awkward position, like what happens. So I don't know. That's a good point. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys have any comments, anything that you guys would like to add, we'd love to hear your opinion on this. This is obviously a big deal. So we'd love to hear you guys' opinion on all of this in the comments. And stay tuned, because we'll be talking about this more. Stay tuned for the comparison video. We'll see you guys next time.